Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by the Lindstrom Law Firm. For wills, trusts, probates, and business law, call 469-515-2559 or visit lindstromlawfirm.com for a free consultation.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another episode. This one, number 273 of Third Degree, the podcast. Here today is Dan Crooke. Howdy, Dan.
Hello.
All well in your world, sir?
You know what? Just waiting for Luton to release New Jersey, and then all will be good.
Oh, who is your supplier this year? Same one?
Unfortunately, yeah, it'll be Umbro again.
Okay. All right. Very good. And your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder, thirddegree.net, and the original soccer influencer himself. Somewhere, are you at your secret compound in Idaho? Buzz Carrick, come in, Buzz.
I'm at the in-laws in Spokane, Washington, so I actually have
Same thing.
Yeah, good internet, but I still have my crappy mic that I drag around with me. So the internet is much, much better. So we can actually understand each other and talk to each other in real time now, which is nice. Yeah.
Last week was a real struggle for the three of us to do a podcast, but you got it done. You edited it amazingly. Yeah. I was very proud of you, Buzz.
There were a lot of pauses I had to cut out.
Yes, we were waiting for comments to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are. We have a game to discuss. MLS All-Star game has taken place. The All-Stars beat the All-Stars. I don't know if anybody watched that. Probably not. Paz, I am told that Paz and Peter Musa both got in the game a little bit. Hooray. Musa got a call-up. What was the genesis behind Musa getting? Is that one of the commissioner call-ups, or somebody got hurt and he was next in line? Does anybody know?
It's one of those late coach call-ups.
Oh, all right. Well, good. I'm proud of him. Happy to have it. And how did Martin do in Goalie Wars?
That was Kalodi. Paz was in the skills challenge.
Oh, okay. Well, how did he do?
I don't know. They lost.
I don't know. I don't watch that stuff.
He was up against Peter Luccin. So, I mean, that's kind of rough, right?
I just think it's funny that we do a podcast about our MLS team and none of us watched the MLS All-Star game or the skills competition.
Yeah, I think that stuff is stupid. I mean, it's not for me. That doesn't mean that people don't love it. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I loved that crap, whatever sport I was into. But now I don't. So, I didn't watch it. I know Kalodi was advanced at least somewhat, and I think he maybe even got to the final. But, the thing I cared about the most was was I going to have access to grab a couple of pictures from it, which I got. So that was the most important thing. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, did anybody watch the Olympics? The U.S. lose to France today. I watched that.
Well, tell us about that, because I did not.
You know what? The United States played really well, and the only difference, frankly, in the game was two of their overage players, Lacazette of all people, who, I mean, good Lord, I didn't even realize that guy was still playing, scored a really nice goal. And Olise, the guy that just got bought by Bayern Munich, beat Brendan Harrison to the top of the box and hit a worldie himself. And they ended up losing 3-0. U.S. had some chances, just didn't. The difference in the game, frankly, is just not converting their chances. And I thought they played really, really well against a very, very good French team. And I thought it bodes well for the rest of the tournament.
How was Tanner?
Man, Tanner was outstanding.
Captain Tanner.
Yeah, you know what? We, over the years on this podcast, we have talked way back when he was playing with the academy, we marveled at that kid's ability to play these insanely accurate, highly cultured, one-touch crossing passes that covered incredible distances and landed at people's feet. You remember those days?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, he has taken that to a new level. He really is an outstanding midfielder. And I'm hoping I get to see him play more. There's a really, really good player on the field there. And I thought he stood out today for the U.S., and I look forward to seeing more of him. And I'm proud that he is from our club.
I think honestly the most important U.S. soccer news today was what happened at the U20 CONCACAF Championship, where a cop was murdered outside their hotel. And all the teams from that was Group A, I think it is. All those games and those teams have been moved to a different city, and that includes the United States. So, I have no idea what it's like down there, obviously. But it was enough for the people organizing that tournament to shift on no notice at all, shift them all to another town, move hotels, move games, move all the teams, move all the production, everything to a different place.
So, I hadn't heard that news. That's
John
crazy.
Arnold tweeted about it a little while ago.
Well, big going-ons in the U.S. soccer world. So, but yeah, Tanner looked great, Buzz. You would have been very proud of him, and you should be able to go back and watch it on Peacock.
Yeah, I probably will if I have time. I'm in the middle of this long, family-oriented trip, and just breaking down for some Olympic soccer wasn't necessarily in the cards today.
I hear you. All right, well, let's talk about The Burn, as this is a sister kissing episode of the podcast, as they go up to New England and get, look, you go on the road, you get a point. You always should feel good about that. But especially based on the fact that they were missing so many players, Buzz, getting a 1-1 draw at New England, even if you don't play well, you at least take a little bit of feel good out of that.
Maybe. They duded that game up. It was awful soccer. I don't even know if that's soccer. It was a bad game across the board. Neither one of those teams had much going on to speak of.
Well, they're two non-playoff teams, so
this is a bad game. It's just looking on paper and the teams that they both rolled out, like no DPs and no big-time player. Bobby Wood started for them, and he hasn't played 90 minutes in like 2 years or something and hadn't scored in a year. It's just like Dallas had to start Carl Sante in midfield. This is MLS' first ever start at a position that I thought he wasn't going to be playing. It just was not a good quality product on the field. New England scored relatively late, and then Tyreek Scott, Dan, I'm getting it wrong again, aren't I? Tyreek Scott, yeah, because he did change it on me again. Tyreek Scott, but I want to get it like he wants it. Tyreek Scott earned a PK with a really nice run. By the way, if you haven't seen him play, and I don't mean you guys, I mean fans in general, if you haven't seen him play, even in the short minutes that he's playing, you can see what he has that is going to make him special. You know what I mean? He had a burst and an awareness, and he's big, and he can fight guys off, and he got in there and earned that PK. And just some of the runs he made were really nice in the very short window he was on the field. And, and we talk about young kids. Sometimes people are like, well, I don't see anything for that kid. I'm like, man, you can see there's something special with that kid even in the limited minutes. And then Paul stepped up as captain and converted the PK, and they got a point. So, if you're trying to scrap your way into the playoffs, you scrapped and stole a point. And if you can do that a couple of times on the road, you can eliminate a win that you need, because basically they still need, I think it's 4 wins plus something. It's like 4 2/3 or something. You almost 5 wins. Now that you've got this tie, it's 4 and something out of 9 games. So you literally have to win half of them. You have to win all the home games and get a win, or get 3 ties on the road in order to get it, more than likely. So if you can put together 3 ties on the road, then you don't need to win a game on the road. And so they're fighting and clawing, and they're giving themselves a chance. They're doing what they need to do to have a chance. So you got to respect that in a way, and take that as a positive going into Leagues Cup.
Dan, you got any thoughts or reactions or observations from the draw in New England?
Nope. Buzz can tell you I legitimately forgot the game even happened because it was very forgettable.
Yeah. You did mention, Buzz, in the notes that, because I remember you mentioning this in your instant reaction video, that you were excited about Anthony Ramirez getting his debut.
Yes. Well, that's personal. Obviously he's a talent that I think will help this team in the future, but that's a kid that I've been talking about for probably 4 years now, in terms of like, he's going to be a homegrown someday. And, right now, technically, they've only announced the North Texas part of his deal. My sources tell me it's a hybrid deal, but this was not this was the first time we've seen an unusual situation, which is where they basically did an emergency short-term signing of him from North Texas, like a loan from North Texas. And so he wasn't even really technically a homegrown in this moment. So he made his debut not as a homegrown, but as a emergency short-term signing. At some point, he should actually become a full-time homegrown. So that's a little bit fascinating if you're a roster nerd kind of guy like I am. But mainly I was just really, really excited because this kid's finally made it to the pro level after I've been talking about him for so long. And classically, he was a 10. But, the 10 is kind of a dying position for the most part. He can still do that, underneath Alan Velasco 10-ish kind of thing. If they want him to do that, he can also play as a false wing kind of thing. He's similar to Alan Velasco in a lot of ways in his game. And lately they've been working him as a deep lying playmaker, like a deep 8, kind of like almost like Mindy does. So he's a versatile kid, and he's just now 18 because he's he's a class of 2025, I think, or maybe it's 24. I don't remember. Whatever. He's just 18, so a kid for the future, and I was just super excited to see him finally make his debut.
And where did Tarek end up on the field?
Up top in his usual sort of wing position. They were using this is actually one thing I didn't like. On paper, they listed Farrington, as the 9, sort of filling in for Patamusa, but he didn't play there. Bernie played as the 9, like a high over-the-top kind of 9, and Logan was more underneath, flip-flopping wings and kind of stuff. And by the end of the game, it's hard to really tell where Tarek Scott was playing, because by that point, Eugene Ansa was on the field, and Areola was on the field, and he was on the field, and Kamuga was still on the field. So, Dante Seeley was playing left back. There was a lot of attacking kind of players on, and they were trying to overload the front. But basically, he came in from the right wingish sort of position. Paul was more underneath at that point, and made a slashing run and earned that PK. So, Tarek Scott, Tyreek Scott will.
T. Scott.
Yeah.
T. Scott.
It's funny. Like, I've been forcing myself to say his name the other way for a year and a half now, and now I got to switch back. He's either going to be a 9 or an aggressive kind of wing, like the same way Farrington is a 9 or a wing in certain situations. That's kind of his game. He's a bit more vertically inclined than Farrington is, but he does have some size like Farrington. So, player that'll be exciting going forward, because this is the year of his recovery from the ACL MCL double. This is the year we thought you really wouldn't get much out of him, and he's still North Texas' leading scorer, and he's making impactful plays for FC Dallas.
Interesting question about that. When did his knee injury take place versus how long it took him before he got back out on the field?
Well, he did his in Spain last year, in his preseason last year. So he came back, for FC Dallas. He came back to training late last season, like in, October or something. I saw him out there at training. But they didn't even bother to roster him and make him, on either team officially until this next season. So, it was a whole year for him before he played. But that was as much about the alignment of when the injury happened as it was his actual recovery time. His return to training came, if it was February to October, so 9 months, 8 months, probably 9 months, probably around there.
I'm obviously asking as it relates to Jesus and Velasco and the idea that we are, I think, getting close to the anticipated time for either or both of those guys to return to the team. And obviously, anything either of those dudes can put out on the field would be beneficial for any possible hopeful playoff push, as unlikely as that seems. So I just wondered.
Well, the team's been really quiet on both of those guys. I actually expected Giovanni Jesus to be back now, but we have heard that he had a scar tissue cleanup kind of situation, which happens and may have delayed him a little bit. And Alan Velasco has been posting stuff on social media. But, it's probably been a month since I've been to training now, and so I don't really have any update for anybody on what the status of those two guys, and the team's not saying either. They're other than like their occasionally retweet of whatever Allen's doing. They're not really talking about it. I imagine they want to keep the expectations down. They don't really want to try and get people super excited because nobody knows really what you're going to get. Honestly, when you got a guy coming back from these kinds of injuries, the timeline can shift on you if you have, you can think you're back and all of a sudden there's a pop of something breaking loose and your mind freaks and your body freaks, and all of a sudden it's not really something bad. It's just a piece of scar tissue or whatever, which is my guess what happened with Giovanni. And, we're just going to, honestly, one of these days it'll just be like, oh, hey, here's pictures of Alan taking part in training full time. And we'll be like, great, he's back, I guess. And then all of a sudden he'll be on the bench. It's like, we're going to have no idea. They don't like to talk about that stuff, really. Like North Texas is even worse. Like North Texas isn't required to list any injury information at all. So they don't. So it's like,
is that like a desire to tamper expectations, or are they protecting other teams from thinking about velocity? I don't understand the reasoning behind being so secretive about it.
Well, I think they want to protect the player, Alan and Giovanni both, because they don't want to go, oh, Alan's going to be back 1st of August, and then like we've just described happens, he steps onto the first game of training, and then he plants and cuts, and all of a sudden a piece of scar tissue pops out. And he panics and has to have a cleanup, and now it's another month later.
You said that like it was gum flying out of your mouth.
Yeah, I don't mean pops out of your leg. I mean, basically what happens is like some piece of tissue kind of pops and slides in your knee. And it's not a bad thing because it's not a structural piece of tissue. It's actually very, very common on this kind of situation when you get back to the full power cutting, this sometimes happens. Sometimes it needs a cleanup, sometimes it doesn't, but it can make your brain... a lot of recovery from this kind of injury is your subconscious brain having faith that you can plant and cut. And if with that kind of little setback, even though it's not a structural setback, it can be a mental setback. And so they don't want to say, Alan's going to be back August 1st, and all of a sudden something happens and he's not back August 1st. And then now what? Now everyone's losing their minds. What's going on? Is it going to be worse? You know what I mean? So they'll just wait until he's cleared, and then they'll start talking about it, I'm sure. And I don't blame them. I mean, these are the kinds of injuries. This is why from the get-go with him, with Alan specifically, even more than Giovanni, I was like, dude, just write off this season and replace him with that DP money, and because you just have no idea what you're going to get, and you have no idea how, because even from the very beginning, they were like, oh, we're real optimistic that he's going to have a really quick recovery and he'll be back like in 9 months. Well, dude, it's 9 months. Where's he at? Like that hype already has put them under this. People bug me all the time about it. When's he back? Where's he back? How come we're not hearing about it? And I'm like,
9 months for both of them, or just.
Alan will be 9 months, I think, in August.
Okay.
So like a couple more, another week and a half or so will be 9 months, and then Giovanni, I think, is over 9 months now. So like the usual prognosis, though, is 9 to 12. It can be a whole year before you're cleared, depending on how fast you heal. Everybody's different, so. I think
Dan, yours was a different injury. How long did it take you to overcome your Achilles tear?
It was 6 months just to walk properly. So I think it's a year till you're back to normal, and then for sports it's 2 years.
I mean, that's what we talk about with this injury too, is that like a lot of times it can take almost a whole another year before your brain really believes that you're back and you really get back to your old form. I mean, we've seen lots of players struggle that first year back, in terms of one to get all the way, as you would say, Peter, stuck in, so.
Dan, are you back to interpretive dance yet?
I mean, if that means standing at the side of a bar holding a beer, yeah.
All right. It's interpretive, man. It's whatever you want it to be, dude.
Exactly. I may interpret it as a dark beer. I may interpret it as something else.
That's right. Exactly. Before we get into, Buzz, the signings or the transfer window rumors and this, that, and the other, one of the things that is starting to come out of the team's performance is obviously people's anticipation of what's going to happen with the announcement of a new manager. Obviously, the team, at least Zanata and Dan Hunt, suggested that nothing would happen until this season is over, and that Luccin has the season to win this job. And based on a significantly, or at least noticeably improved performance and run of results, are you getting the sense that Peter is the man that is going to ultimately end up winning this job, or is it still too soon to judge that?
I think so far he's put himself in just about as good circumstances as he could. he's winning at a above 500 rate. What are they? They're 5-1-3. I think it is. I should have double checked.
I think that's right.
So that's a nice clip. That's above 500. That's like that pace is one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the West. However, a lot of it's at home, so there's that part. A lot of it has come against teams that aren't as great. There's that part, but when they put it out there, when they fired Estevez, they put it out there. Making the playoffs is the line. Okay, well he's put himself pretty damn close to that line. There will be things out of his control that there are teams ahead of them that are also playing pretty well, and if those teams continue to play pretty well, that's going to be out of his control. He could win all his games and not get in. Well, actually, that's probably not true. If you won them all, I'm sure he would get in. But the point being is that to say it's playoffs or bust is probably a little harsh. So what you have to look at is he done enough? Is he playing good enough soccer that it would have been a playoff team if he had more time? And he has done that. He did okay in the Open Cup, didn't advance super far. And part of it too was they said the Leagues Cup was on the table. So we're going to have to see how they make a run at that. I think he'll go all in at Leagues Cup because that was one of the things they talked about was a chance to win trophies that was available in Leagues Cup. So I think in the end of the day, so far, it looks like he's done enough. He's got guys that were underperforming that the team needed to be special. He's gotten them to perform well. And I'm looking at guys like Leggett. I'm looking at guys like Paul Arriola having a couple of his best games of the season. You look at the progression of Logan Farrington that's happened under him. Nikosi's playing a little bit better. A lot of good things are happening. At the end of the day, if he's put himself in a good position, I think that just makes him, however, one of the candidates. Like if he had screwed this up and it continued to crash and burn, then he would have taken himself out of the candidate list. I think what he's doing is basically putting himself into the candidate list because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter almost how good Peter has done. If there's an amazing candidate that shows up that's even better, he won't get it. Now I don't know who that would be. We've talked forever about the kind of candidates that exist. Has Luccin done enough that he's now a better candidate than Eric Quill? I don't know about that. I think that he's put himself in the conversation with that level. So then it'll come down to, do they like the way he works with them? He's in the office with them. Does Zanata like him? Does the Dan Hunt like him? And in the end, that's what's going to matter: Zanata and Dan Hunt and Clark Hunt, right? But you all know that, I don't even know if Oscar calls up and says I'm coming back, right? Then Luccin's not getting it, Or if I don't know who else would be a Hunt favorite, but let's say that I don't know, Bob Bradley or Pep Guardiola calls and goes, I'll come there for $200,000 if you guys want me. I mean, you can see a case where it wouldn't matter how good Luccin did if the right candidate calls. But I definitely think he's in the conversation. What do you guys think?
I was going to ask Dan. Dan, you've been in your lifetime as a Luton fan, been through your fair share of firing and hirings of managers. I'm interested in your perspective of if Luccin has done enough to win this job.
I think he's on course too. A big thing is getting back to the identity of the team, and he's kind of brought that in. Younger players, more attacking soccer, kind of more inviting, interesting soccer. The success is there to follow. It's going to be down to how he performs over the rest of the season, how the players perform, and I guess crucially for the Hunts, who actually wants the job at the price they want to pay.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's a really good way to say it, Dan, is that he's on track to have put himself in the conversation. He could definitely lose it over the last 9 games. If they crater and burn, or if injuries start to get better and it doesn't keep improving, that'll be a bad sign too.
Buzz, because I know you're a fan, if Eric Quill, let's say Luccin gets this team into the playoffs, they squeak into the playoffs and lose in the first round, which would be a pretty remarkable achievement based on how shitty this season really has been.
Oh, yeah.
But Eric Quill said, "Hey, I want that job. Who would you hire?"
Wow. I think I probably would still hire Quill because he's actually won stuff,
Right.
you know. But it would be close, you know. I mean, I think it would probably come down
Really,
to,
that would be close to you.
yeah, because if you can get this team into the playoffs with the load they have to get to 44 or even 45, as some people are projecting it might be, you know, you're gonna have to win half of the games you have left.
How many points did they have when they fired Nico? Were they on 30? 28 or something?
It was on 20 because they had 20 and they were going to need 24 in less than half the season. Right. So like he'll have to win half the games he has left, maybe even more than half the games he has left. Not just play above 500. We have to win half of them. So that's more like a 750 clip, really, because you're not going to lose them all. You're going to tie some too, you know. So it's if you can get this team with the injury it has and the roster disconnect, we've talked about how pieces don't fit and such. If you can get this team playing at a 750 clip, man, that's amazing. So like if they pull this off, that's honestly an incredible endorsement, you know. And I like Peter. The only thing that he has deficient compared to Quill is first team, you know, head coach experience and not winning anything. You know, and even now Peter can add the fact that he's coached in MLS and Quill hasn't. Quill's only been an assistant in MLS, but he's been a head coach at USL and at Next Pro.
Right.
So, you know, resume-wise, originally you would have said Quill, but now this chance that Luccin's having and getting and doing well with makes them about even. So, you know, it'll come down to, you know, if Peter can get him in or at least get him really close, it'll come down to interview process. You know, how does it mesh with what Zanata wants to do and what the team wants to do? You know, like we've talked about this lack of identity. It's like right now, like it used to be, somebody pointed this out in the Discord today. They were talking about a couple of years ago, the identity when they first became a fan was this academy and this pathway and this best development. Well, right now you can't say that. So like, what is the identity of FC Dallas? Do they even have one anymore?
No.
So like, how does that all mesh? You know, we've talked about, they deny this, but like to me, like the way that coach wanted to play a back three, and it was like they were building a roster to play a back four, and he wanted to play a back three. And it's like there's a disconnect, you know. So which one of these coaches might mesh better with the front office? And don't forget, there's a new TD, like Zanata's been promoted, so there's another person involved in here that we know very little about. Yet he doesn't really do media, you know. So in the end of the day, Dan and Clark and with Zanata are going to make this call. And it's going to come down to like, because Luccin's put himself in the conversation, unless he burns the thing to the ground, you know, they're going to go in there and they're going to go, here's what we think this roster is. Here's who we think who the good players are. Do you agree with us or not? And if one guy's saying, no, this roster stinks, I got to get rid of 80% of this roster. Whereas Luccin might say, nope, I got this guy's going. So like that, it could come down to something like that, you know. Because I think even if Luccin gets into the playoffs, I don't think that's a lock to have the job. I don't. I know that they said it would.
I think that just gives Dan the excuse to hire him.
It does, but I don't think it makes it a lock, though. But you're probably right. It would give them the excuse to just go ahead and do it because it's easier just to keep going than it would be to bring in somebody new.
He'll take the job for probably less than Estevez was making, and he got him in the playoffs, and he'll want to, you know, bolster his resume. It'll be the easiest choice in Dan Hunt's head he's ever had, other than, you know, getting Schellas to finally take the job.
It's also the see we were right hire. Right, because if he gets this thing into or brand right next to the playoffs, then they can say, see, we told you it was a playoff roster. And then, see, that's our guy. He's getting it done. Let's go with that, you know. And they may be right at that point, you know. I think there's a big disconnect around that idea of it's a playoff roster with the injuries. Because clearly with all those injuries, it wasn't, you know, and the way people were performing under Estevez, it wasn't. And then Luccin, to his credit, has got guys performing. And that makes it where, like, if they played this way all year, they would be a lock in the playoffs. They'd be in easy.
Yep. Well, I guess we will see. The other big news of the week is that, yes, Dallas did make a signing, and it is exactly the gentleman from the Israeli League that we were seeing rumored about on the interwebs. He is from Angola, so he's the club's first Angolese player. At least I think I'm correct in saying that. I'm safe in saying that's the first.
I would have said Angolan player, but why you're Angolese?
Angolan, yeah.
Well, okay, whatever. His name is Manuel Kafumana, and he goes by Show, as we've discussed, which is he's 25, and he is a defensive mid or some sort of center mid. We don't know much about him, and I guess the speculation is this is a loan with an option to buy, Buzz, and so it's very low risk. They need a body in the middle of the field. If he shows up and farts and pulls a Giassi or something, nobody's going to care.
It's a rent-a-player. Yeah, nobody cares. I mean, if he shows up and turns out he's great, awesome. Keep him, buy him, whatever. But it's like when you're talking about a 1-year contract with a buy, like the one year, if the 1 year is literally correct, that's like till the middle of next summer because that aligns with the European or everybody else's calendar, right? Well, I'm sure there's a way for Dallas to get out of it in December. So really it's like this guy's, worst case, he could be here for just like 3 months and that's it, So I don't think they would have done this if Frazier hadn't gone down for 2 months, You combine it with all the other bang-ups, they're like, we got to get a body. Because especially with Nolan being gone for the U20s and then, there just was too many missing pieces. So I understand it. I mean, I would have just signed Diego Garcia, but they're not me, so.
Right. Okay. So this is the big question I have: is why sign this guy? Is this some sort of performative? Hey, look, we tried kind of thing by the club to the fans, or I mean, if really the whole point to this club is you grow your own, you have an academy, you have all these amazing young players. It's not like they don't have bodies. They don't need a body. So I don't understand the reason why you go find some obscure African player playing in Israel to come be a body.
Well, presumably they must feel he can play at a certain level, that he can play at a level, equivalent to Frazier. Part of it too, I think, is that they were watching how many minutes that were piling up on Mendy, when he's got his leg soreness, so they probably feel like they need a guy that can play at a certain level, rather than going out, he must be better than Carl Sante, for example.
Otherwise, Nolan Norris.
Yeah. Well, Nolan's going to be gone a bit, so that one I can understand. But they must think he's better than those two guys, or what would be the point? Just keep playing Carl Sante and Anthony Ramirez for that matter. Just keep doing these emergency signings from North Texas if you have to. But, Luccein's probably saying, dude, you guys are killing me. I'm trying to make the playoffs here and win this job. Okay, we'll get you a guy. So they went and got him a guy. So that's how I look at it. You know what I mean? Like, this signing doesn't bother me, honestly, because this is the kind of like, we're dying in the midfield. We got like 18 injuries at one position. Okay, go get a central midfielder. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what? Maybe the biggest lesson out of this is some sort of insight into the quality as to this club's supposed additional what's the word I'm looking for? Ability to scout globally. Like, haven't they hired other scouts for other areas of the world?
Yeah.
Like if somebody went out and scouted this guy and he turns out to be, your kind of run-of-the-mill MLS dude, it probably makes sense as a good signing because he was a body and he filled a role and he was better than one of your kids. But if he shows up and he's another Giassi or any other endless list of midfielders this team has totally bonked on in the last decade, I think we learned all we need to know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like until we find out what kind of player he is, it's really hard to make much of a judgment because you can look at YouTube or whatever and you don't know the leagues that the videos are from and it's just clips of whatever. That's not the same as watching a guy play 90 minutes, in an MLS game. So, until we get some game action, it's going to be really hard to judge the signing. And if the dude never plays, like there have been signings before where they've signed a guy and the dude's never played. It's not the end of the world. As long as the deal isn't crazy long or crazy money, The problem here for me is that he ate the last international spot. So like if you're going to do anything else, you're now going to have to make a roster move of some kind to do anything else. You'll have to clear an international spot somehow, and you'll have to clear a roster spot somehow, because this guy ate the last open roster spot and the last international spot by my math, my roster math. So, there are ways to do that stuff because of how they'll, move guys down to North Texas or loan them here or whatever. That's not the problem. The problem is that you now have to do it. This was the open spot. And so now we expect them or one of them to go get a center back. The coach, who's no longer here, has been saying since February, since they played a couple of games and realized they needed a center back, that they still need a center back. Your backup choices are Corcha and Omar Gonzalez, who's 35, and Sante, who hasn't played hardly any center back at all, even though that's what he was supposed to be.
So I guess, when you did your poll and asked everybody to guess how many people they'd sign in this window, the winning number was 1. They've made 1, which was a bit out of desperation. Do you think, Buzz or Dan, that they will sign a center back in this window?
What do you think, Dan?
I don't know. They've definitely been looking at centre backs, as whether they can get one over the line.
I'm going to bet at this point that it's no, because the window opened on the 18th. So we're like, a week into that now. And there's there's not even any rumors anymore. Like they haven't been linked to a center back.
And hasn't there been 2 center backs signed in the last week in the league
already? There's been more
already?
than 2, I think. There's been like 10 center backs signed this window in MLS. And like there's even some center backs who want to get traded inside the league. Look, they still could. There's plenty of time before the roster freeze deadline to do it. But I just kind of feel like, like I said, they ate the last open spot and the last international spot. Luccin's got the team running pretty good. He's not the full-time guy. He's an interim guy. I just feel like that's probably it. Like, even though I would say they really need one, it's probably a wait and see time now, because they're like, they don't know for sure this is the guy yet, the coach. Which is what I was trying to ask them when they had their press conference. I was like, are you going to move forward with building roster when you don't have a coach, a full-time coach? And they were like, oh yeah, Luccin's going to, are they? I don't know, man. It's like, it just feels like there's a lot of wait and see happening right now, waiting for guys to get back and get healthy. How good are we really? Can we make a run with what we have? Like we talk about a center back because we're talking about a big picture, like 2 or 3 year window. Right? It's like Ibiaga's 32, Omar's 35. Neither one of the other guys have progressed yet. There's some other guys in your system that look interesting, but they might be a couple of years away. It's like you need a center back for the next 2 or 3 seasons, maybe 4 seasons. That's the center back they need, not we're fighting to make this playoff spots we're 2 points out with 9 games to go. That's a different calculation, so.
Good grieving.
I'm at a point now. It's not gonna. I'm now leaning more towards that. This is gonna be it. That one guy.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, there's so many. The whole thing's a disaster.
I want to be wrong. I want them to be getting a real center back,
but I can make an argument that now's not the time to be getting a center back when you're still trying to figure out who your manager's going to be for 25.
Oh, totally, 100%. But this is the window where there are more players available at better prices and better talent levels, because this is the major window for everybody.
Yeah, but this is also the cluster F you've put yourself in.
Oh yeah, totally, 100%.
AKA another season of FC Dallas soccer.
Welcome to FC Dallas. Yep.
All right, so next up is the Leagues Cup. Here is Dallas's big chance to win silverware. First off, on Saturday they have to travel up to St. Louis and play St. Louis City. And then they've got the game at home against Juarez on the 31st. I'm sorry, on the 31st, which is just 4 days later. So, Buzz, I heard you say earlier, just a few minutes ago, you think they're going all in on this.
I do.
All in. Does that include any of the injured players that have not been able to play?
Man.
Do we have any idea if
No.
Jesus is back or?
No clue. Jesus is streaming and all that stuff. I think Delgado's got a little bit longer, and obviously Frazier's out for a while. I think they're all in on this because they mentioned this was a chance to win a trophy. And they've got a little time to rest. And if they get eliminated, they will have plenty of time to get guys back. But if they also have a pretty good path. I mean, somebody was doing the math, and if they win this group, there was a discussion in the Discord about the teams that they would be in their way, and it's all beatable teams. It's all, for whatever reason, their part of the bracket is relatively beatable, particularly because it probably means they would host. I believe they host if they get out of the group. So they're going to feel like they've got a shot. And so I think they're going to go all in, especially because Luccin's still trying to prove that he's the guy. So now, given how many injuries they have, all in is relative. But they should have Musa back. If they don't sell Paz, he's going to be here.
Right.
That seems to cool off a little bit. But the windows are still open for everybody. But the other leagues, like the European leagues, are all starting in the next couple of weeks, I think. So teams are winding down the buys probably.
Well, just so everybody knows, I'm sitting here looking at the bracket. If Dallas was there in the West 3, the winner, the first and second place teams play the first and second place teams out of 5, which is Leon, Portland, and Colorado. Just FYI. Yeah,
I think they would. Leon obviously would be, if Dallas would advance. Leon, you'd play here. I think Portland was because I believe it's based on last year's standings. So Dallas would be the higher seed compared to all those teams, I think, based on last year's standings. Because didn't Portland have a bad season, if I remember correctly? And Colorado for sure did. They've had a remarkable turnaround. So, there's a good chance that against any of those teams, you're going to get a host, And so there's a chance that you could have a relatively good pathway for yourself.
Unless you ended up in second and won the game against the Group 5 winner, the next game would more than likely be against Club America.
That's a tougher one. But again, it would be here. Or it would be in the States. It would be the States. Club America would have, I think they're one of the teams that has the neutral venues, but it would still be in the States.
Oh, would it? Okay.
Yeah, all right. There's no games in Mexico, I don't believe, unless I'm massively mistaken, but I don't think so.
They're doing the regional hubs.
Yeah, right. So I don't know where Club America's hub is, but, you don't have to go to Mexico at any point.
Let's see. Club America hub privileges through the semifinals in the state of California. Club America will debut in San Diego.
Well, Club America in LA, to be fair, is a Club America home game.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. Yeah. But because you would have I'm pretty sure you have host rights above those other teams. So you would have a good chance if you get through to sort of give yourself a run. But again, I don't think that any of that matters. I think it's going to come down to Luccin's trying to win a job. He's going to try and win everything possible, and he doesn't. While he's playing more kids than Estevez did, and we're finally seeing some movement in the pipeline again, thank God. It's still, he's only doing it mostly because he's being forced to, not because he really wants to, because of all the injuries. And I don't know that, this club this season has had a really bad record of saying, guys, we're going to be out 2 weeks, and then a couple of months later, they're back. So I'm pretty sure Jesus, if I remember correctly, when he went out, they were 2 to 3 weeks. I'm pretty sure we're way past that now. So it'll be any game he'll show up and be ready to go, or it'll be indefinitely,
The other thing that happened this week, and this is obviously because the transfer window's open and all sorts of noise happens, there was a reoccurrence of a tie of Dallas being tied to a Brazilian player.
Yeah, he's been apparently linked a year ago. He plays for Fluminense.
Yeah, Fluminense. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He's really fast, young, skinny dude.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
I looked him up, and he looks like depending on who you believe in terms of how much he would be costing, he could be a U22 initiative, or if the price is high enough, he would have to be a DP, So whether they're actually after a guy like that or whether they're lining that up in case they lose on Jesus' sale or a Moose's sale. Sometimes those links are there because of the team is interested in like, hey, if we have to do something, we need a guy. We want this guy. So you line it up for if that happens. Or if you're shifting your system and you want to go 4 U22 initiatives, or if you decide that one of your current U22 initiatives is not working, so hearing about a guy now with that what would likely be that kind of price tag doesn't make sense unless you're talking about really more for next year, because I don't think you're getting a guy like that, and I'm trying to find the tweet about
Yeah, I'm
it.
sorry, I forgot what his name is. I think it begins and his first and last name begins with R's, I thought, wasn't it? Anyway, it's not important. I'm sorry I brought it up without looking it up. The other thing that happened was the rumor out there that Musa is being looked at by Ipswich, which created all sorts of consternation with the curious, because obviously he just got here and has just started scoring goals for Dallas, and even the idea or suggestion that the Hunts would turn around and immediately sell him didn't go down well.
Well, it's all about money, isn't it? You wouldn't want to sell a guy that you just got and it was doing great things for you and was really turning your team around. But if anybody, doesn't have to be Ipswich Town or not, it doesn't have to be a viable source or not, if they're offering legitimate profit on a guy that you just got, then you might do the business. What would it take? I don't know, Pepe money. I mean, if somebody comes in and offers you $20 million and you can double your $10 million after
oh my gosh, you
6
have to
months,
take that,
right? You have to take it. So if somebody comes in and offers you 12, I would hope that they would say, no, we're not going to make $2 million on a guy after like 6 months. That's ridiculous. We bought this guy. Like, keep in mind, they have a contract through 2007. And then they have options. So they have a long deal on him. So they have all the leverage. Even if he wanted to go, they have the leverage. So it's not the kind of thing where like he's banging down the doors as far as we know to get out of here. He literally just got here. So it's, I find it unrealistic unless somebody money whips them. But, the numbers he's putting up, I don't put it past him that somebody wouldn't money whip them and the Hunts wouldn't jump at it. Again, Pepe money, right? That would pull the trigger, I bet.
Ultimately, it's team talk. So it's about as reliable as a insert really, really terribly crappy car.
Team Talk being the source that reported it. Hey, Dan, I'm curious on the English Football Club hate scale. Where does Ipswich fall for you? Are they like close to Watford?
No. Okay. I think for Luton fans, so we're in East Anglia. Well, that's our TV region. And the two big teams in the market, because that's where the TV studios are Norwich and Ipswich. So that's who dominates the TV time, no matter how good they are, how bad they are, how whatever. So it'd be like, I don't know, being I guess there's not really an equivalent here, is there? I guess like being a Mets fan in New York and just being bombarded with Yankee stuff. You don't necessarily care about them, but it's probably annoying that your team doesn't necessarily get the news that the coverage that they deserve because of it.
Well, I just wondered if there was a big Luton-Ipswich rivalry that I was...
No, not in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. All right. Shucks darn. All right. So that's all the rumor stuff. I guess we have no idea what's going to happen. We'll just have to sit around like the rest of the bums and figure out, wait and see if Dallas pulls anything off. And then just see how Leagues Cups go, because I think now I'm going to guess, Buzz, as we... before I get to that, anything else we need to talk about? Because I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, I just wanted to mention that the Pipeway started working a little bit since we saw Anthony Ramirez with the first team. There also were 3 academy kids made their debut with North Texas, which is like the first time, other than Daniel Barron, who's a U19 that came up a couple months ago. This is the first time we've seen like young, like one of them's 14. So like this is the first time we've seen a kid that young since Matthew Corcoran came up for the first time. So like, that kid is legit. He's with the US U15 team. He's the one that had that absolutely sick move the other day. He popped up on my list of potential first year homegrowns. He's a 2009, by the way. Keep that. That's insane.
Shut up.
And the other two guys were 08s. Now what really matters with North Texas is if you continue to get one call-up doesn't mean a lot other than like, okay, that's cool. Because a lot of times it's about who's available and the positional needs and that kinds of stuff. But if they continue to get looks, if it's one step on the progress. And considering we had seen none for a long time, it was really exciting to see those three kids. So, and by the way, I found the tweet about the guy. It's John Kennedy is his name.
Oh, that's right.
Guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the weird, Brazilian dude with an American name.
Yeah.
Forgot that's what it was. Yeah. Okay. Probably not much to that either.
I mean, remember what we always say, 10 out of the 10 links, one of them will be real, What you can think about is like, where is the smoke coming positionally? Are we seeing lots of links at one particular spot?
Well, the one link turned out to be show.
It did. It did. Well, there's been two more since then, but
does the counter start over once one of the links comes through? You start the counter over again?
10. But if you look at like where, like Brazilians, obviously because there's a lot of Brazilians, we go, oh, we open our eyes a little bit more,
And they may be selling Mooses, so they need a striker.
All of a sudden, there's a Musa sale rumor. We know that somebody tried to buy Jesus last year. It's always those. Logan Farrington's playing really well. People were talking about him on like the All-Star game broadcast. Someone told me,
that's right.
There's hype around, and Dallas is playing all of a sudden really hot soccer. So people are paying attention.
Cue the dramatic music.
Cue drama. It's silly season time, right? Because this is the windows are open, so you never know. So it's always worth discussing what these things mean and like, could it be real? Could it not be? And like, what would happen if the right price came from Musa? What would you do? And those things are always important to talk about.
Well, I think by the time we do another episode, the 2 Leagues Cup games will have been played. Am I saying that? Yeah, because it's Saturday and Wednesday, so we'll probably wait and record till after the Juarez game, won't we?
Yeah, for sure.
Are you back in town by then?
No.
No, okay.
No, I'll be on the road somewhere.
Man, Buzz, you are missing the best Dallas summer we've had in the last several years.
I know, it's hotter here than it is back home.
It's amazing. The weather here has been so good. And it's going to stay that way for a few more days before it pokes back up to 100. But we're getting a reprieve from the last 2 hell summers we've had.
Yeah, next Wednesday I'll be near the Black Canyon of the Gunnison in Colorado. Be on my way back.
Dan, this is a quality Dallas summer, just so you know.
Oh, it's solid, yeah. Haven't melted to the ground yet.
Well, thankfully, the next 2 days here, the high is supposed to be like 80 and 77 the next 2 days for a high. So I'm real excited about that.
Have you been hey, wait, are you over by Yellowstone?
I was a week ago. I'm not now. How cool was that video, though? Wow.
Missed the explosion.
I'm amazed nobody got hurt.
It's crazy stuff. All right. Well, very good. Well, soccer, keep going on. We'll see how things progress, and we'll all keep our fingers and toes crossed for a successful Dallas Burn Leagues Cup run. See if we can have some more fun.
Yeah, I actually really surprisingly enjoyed Leagues Cup last year. I thought I was going to hate it, and I didn't. I actually kind of liked it. So hopefully that's still fun.
Did you come to that conclusion after the Messi game or before the Messi game? Because my enthusiasm for it was, I have to admit, was largely bolstered by that amazing night.
That certainly was an amazing night, and part of it too was that Dallas or coach or whatever used those games to try something different with Allen in the middle, and it really was explosive, and so that was fun, And it's just, and like the game, the people seem to care about the games, the team seem to care about them, the fans seem to care about them, So like the whole thing was just, I thought no one was going to give a crap, and people gave a crap, and so I was like, oh, this is more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how Leagues Cup gets received this year. Obviously, with all the Open Cup drama and fan groups boycotting it because of the Open Cup drama and blah, 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 blah. And the fact that Messi probably isn't going to be playing in it.
No, and last year he was a huge part of that.
And it was obviously, yes, because that entire boulder was just starting to roll downhill. when he just started hitting, winning games late and hitting bombs left and right, and just doing messy stuff. So I am very curious how successful MLS is in kind of building the hype and sustaining it for this tournament for the next month. I don't know. My guess is that it will be way less than last year. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe it'll just be, if you look at the FC Dallas games minus that Miami game, it was dollars dishwater. Outside of the Alan Velasco experiment, the games themselves were horrendous. Officiating was terrible. Crowds were flat. I mean, just not excited for that part of it again. If you take out the kind of one successful thing, which was Messi.
Well, I would say I think the worst case scenario that could come out of this is that both the Open Cup and the Leagues Cup fall flat. I think MLS has got and U.S. soccer in general has a real problem if both of those U.S. Open Cup games have largely been poorly attended, at least at the MLS level so far. And if Leagues Cup in turn also isn't well attended and get a lot of attention, then that's a real bummer result for everybody if that's what happens.
Well, it's a complicated topic, but I think that the fact that MLS has basically crapped all over the Open Cup for 30 years is why no one cares about it. It's like if they got on board and hyped it up and made a big deal about it like they do the Leagues Cup, people would care about it. So like if Leagues Cup crashes and burns, I actually would be okay with that because maybe it'll mean they'll go back to caring about the Open Cup. Probably not, but you never know.
Yeah. I mean, the problem you've got is they don't hold marketing rights for the Open Cup, so they aren't going to care about it.
No, of course not.
The big issue of Leagues Cup is, it's cool to have different teams. And Kosi Tafari was talking at the last home game that he was looking forward to it because it's just different playing teams you don't ordinarily play. But let's be honest, unless it's Pumas, Tigres, America, maybe Monterrey, who cares? There's not, the appeal of the Mexican teams isn't massive outside of and Chivas, I guess. It's the same, the reverse. Playing against St. Louis City is not sexy. Playing against LAFC and Miami, sure. But, St. Louis, Minnesota United, FC Dallas, it's just not a draw.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, it's all just a, test run for the eventual merging of the two leagues anyway. So
100%.
For sure.
That always gets people riled.
Say that again?
That always gets people riled, but I totally believe it.
Oh, it's totally happening. Andy and I have been predicting that for 10 years.
Yeah, me too.
You probably too have. You have too. Well,
I'm sure we've talked.
Sorry, it's late.
It is late.
I'm drunk. Okay. Well, here we go. I think we've done it another one. Anything else we need to touch on? Kit talk. Is there any good kit talk out there?
There's not. But you've looked over the big transfer news in DFW this week.
That's right. Dallas Trinity has signed some more players.
Yeah, they're kind of a little bit more interesting now. You've loaned Madison White from Racing Louisville, goalkeeper, drafted this year she was drafted out of Texas Tech. Actually one of the All-American first in Texas Tech history. Did I say goalkeeper? Probably I said goalkeeper.
You did.
Oh, good.
Yeah, she's a goalkeeper. Local kid, too.
From Rockwell. She played actually under Katie Lund as their first choice keeper, who was an FC Dallas kid. Played with the WPSL team as well. But I think the biggest signing is Chioma Ibagagu, who is she's originally from London, raised in Capel, played for Arsenal, played for Tottenham, played for Houston Dash, Orlando Pride, played with a lot of the US age groups, and then has been capped a couple of times for England. By far and away the most accomplished player that they've signed. And beyond that, kind of, a cool story. She's actually resuming her professional career after fighting cancer. we've talked a little bit about USL Super League in general being kind of people who couldn't make the grade in NWSL or have kind of aged out of it. And this is someone who, I think she's 30. So, on that kind of higher end for NWSL, but this could really be a launch pad for, one, if Super League turns out to be a success story, she could be the face of that. Or two, if Super League is firmly that second tier, then that could kind of propel her back into that top tier discussion.
That is fascinating. Yeah, I saw they signed her, and she did seem quite accomplished. The cancer part of her story is not something I was aware of, but that does answer why she was available to come play here. So that's good that she's gotten healthy again and can do that. That'll be fun. Their first game's beginning of September here at the Cotton Bowl, correct?
Yeah, and actually, something came out today. Someone had gone through the team's ticket prices. Turns out Dallas Trinity actually has the most expensive, cheapest ticket of all the teams.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Surprisingly, in general, just far more expensive than Brooklyn. I think the only team more expensive was DC Power.
I wonder where Brooklyn's playing their games.
Brooklyn.
Well.
Sorry.
Wait, I'm
curious if it's like Randall's Island or something like that.
I know someone's going to start playing out of Icon.
Which is the old Randall's Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was them or if it was... No, actually, it was NYCFC too. It wasn't them.
Well, anyway, I'm interested to see where that thing goes. I'm curious as to what kind of attendance they get, especially on the regular, and how that all falls together. That's really interesting to me. Being the first professional women's team in the area is a big deal. I hope it's received well.
They're going to play on Coney Island.
There's a stadium at Coney Island.
There's the baseball stadium. I don't know if it's that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Wait, hold on. It's
not that big a deal. I just wondered.
It's the baseball stadium, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well.
Okay, by the way, quick shout out to Ainsley McCammon. She's from
Ainsley.
Yeah, she's from Bedford and plays for Solar, or did play for Solar.
What did she win?
She signed for the Seattle Reign, 16 years old.
I saw that.
Youngest player in Reign history, and something like the 6th or 8th youngest player, I don't have it right in front of me, in the whole league's history. 16 years old and coming up on her 17th birthday soon. So impressive accomplishments by her. She's a U.S. Youth National Team player. So Ainsley McCammon, congrats.
Man, I'm telling you, Dallas-Fort Worth is cranking out women talent left and right.
Oh, it's ridiculous, dude. Yeah.
Yes. It's ridiculous.
Solar's insane, and even a couple of the FC Dallas teams are pretty good, too. It's just unbelievable talent.
I don't think it'll be a surprise, but I'm thinking Jaden Shaw is going to be the surprise star of the women's team this tournament. Because Rose is going to get hurt or something like that, and they're going to need her, and she's going to show up, and she's just going to ball out. I just know it. I can feel it in my bones.
I'm hyped.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by the Lindstrom Law Firm for wills, trusts, probates, and business law. Call 469-515-2559 or visit lindstromlawfirm.com for a free consultation.
Very good. All right. Well, Dan, thank you for your insight and loving soccer talking fun.
Thank you for making us sound all good and organized.
Yeah. You're overhyping that. Buzz, I hope your trip is going well with you and your in-laws and your family and whatever weird, mysterious things you do up there in Idaho.
Well, thanks for you guys for working with a tough schedule for me. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. We love doing it. All right, and thank you, FC Dallas Curious fans. We will be back next week, I assume, after the Juarez game, so we can talk about both of those things on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Yay, Leagues Cup.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.